And now we're moving to the interviews. Joining me today in the studio is Glen Grant, a former lieutenant colonel in the British Army and now resident of Latvia, where he works with the Baltic Security Foundation on issues of regional security. Also, he has recently moved to a deep tech community. Welcome, Glen. Great to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you too.
Let's start with this. While you were in the army, you oversaw troop deployments in Kosovo, as well as worked to bring refugees out of Albania. Well, how has the region changed since that time?
It's good. It's interesting. I mean, both countries are much more dynamic than people realize. And I mean, Kosovo is actually beginning to be one of those thriving entrepreneurial engines that 10 years ago you would not have expected that. But I think that both countries have got dynamic people. And so I think we're going to hear a lot more of them in the future. When I went to Kosovo, there were lots of houses with no windows and houses with no doors, but you won't see that there now. It's growing and it's thriving, and actually, it's a lovely place to go. I think the service in Kosovo, in hotels and restaurants, is the best of any country that I've been in Europe.
Wow, that's a bit of a surprise. Let's stay in the region for a bit. Well, we all follow the upcoming elections in Poland and how the relationships between Poland and Ukraine are seemingly changing in these latest days and weeks, specifically with grain transit and grain export and import, but also with what Mateusz Morawiecki said, the Prime Minister of Poland, that okay, we're not going to supply Ukraine with weapons if they're going to pursue their idea of going with grain to Poland. What do you think of this conflict? Is this the thing that just is necessary for the election period, for peace, the ruling party in Poland, or this is something real?
No, I think it's both. It's both. It's necessary for the election period because it's important. If the public in Poland are giving their taxes to Ukraine, then they do want to see that it's appreciated and they're getting something back for it. I mean, they are getting peace and security. We know that, but it's still, Joe Public still wants to see and hear something. There's a second thing to it, which is that the weapons were actually pretty much running out anyway, because Poland's already given a third of its defense forces to Ukraine. And there's a limit to how much more they can give without actually denuding themselves and actually risking their own security should everything go wrong. Because some of the weapons that they expect to get from America are not going to come yet. And I think the last thing is that, this is an agricultural country, Poland. They cannot afford to have the country trashed by cheap grain coming in and undermining all the local rural areas, which are part of the engine of Poland.
So basically, everybody is defending their own interest, which is, of course, geopolitically.
Which is natural.
Let's see how well do you know the ranks, the military ranks. So last week, one of the UK shows has asked chaps to count all, how many military ranks are there, and he couldn't. How many could you name? You are yourself a lieutenant colonel, which makes it one.
Oh, good grief. We've got lots of arms, of course. So, I mean, if you want to start at the bottom, private, gunner, sapper, corporal, bombardier, corporal of horse, sergeant, staff sergeant. Cavalry's got a funny name for a sergeant. I can't remember what it is. And then warrant officer 2, warrant officer 1. So, and then you have the jobs, which are sergeant major, company sergeant major, battery sergeant major. Those are not ranks, but they fit in. And then you come into the officers of second lieutenant, cornet for the cavalry, lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier, major general, lieutenant general, general, field marshal that is no longer there.
Holy
How's
shit!
that?
That's a lot of knowledge, young man. Let me ask you this: which of these ranks is the highest? Marshal of the Royal Air Force, Field Marshal, or Admiral of the Fleet?
That is a very good question. I mean, because the Navy is the senior service, then it must be Admiral of the Fleet.
Funny enough, they are all the same. At least how we Googled that.
Well, okay.
Out of all the ranks that you know and you mentioned to me, which one is the sexiest to you?
That's a very good question. I think Major.
Major.
Yeah, because it's the job where you've got the greatest opportunity for change in the system. Because you've got all the experience of frontline. You've got hundreds of friends all over the Army, Navy and Air Force because of Staff College, and you get really, really high grade jobs as a major. So, for example, our brigade chiefs of staff are majors, whereas in half the other armies, they're lieutenant colonels or even colonels.
Glenn, could you remember how you've been in the army? And can you tell me in your best lieutenant colonel voice, like I'm your soldier, and you tell me that it's bloody well time to wrap up this interview and close the show? How would you do that?
Well, young man, I think you've done a pretty good job so far. I mean, you've come up with good questions and you've come up with some sharp comments generally. But I mean, I have to say that after a while, talking to you, it does wear a bit thin. And it's probably time that you took yourself off to the bar, had a beer, and that we all just, finished. Meet you next time.
That was Glen Grant. Thank you, Glenn. See you soon.
See you soon, mate.